In today's video, I'm going to be showing how to make this super easy crochet cozy with matching coaster. We'll be using a beautiful ribbed effect for the cozy and double crochets for the coaster. Now I will be sharing a step-by-step on how to make the cozy, but be sure to check out the tips beforehand so you can see how to easily adapt the pattern to fit the mug that you're using. When you're picking out your mug, I would recommend that you use something similar to this, something that has a really nice deep handle. This is kind of, I guess you'd call it a square mug. I really like this because it really helps to hold that warmer in place. In the past, I've used a cup with a sort of sloping handle, and as you can see, the little handles here kind of rest above it. So again, this is the kind that I would recommend. To make your mug warmer, you want to make it about an inch shorter than the diameter of the cup. So for example, my cup is 11 inches around, so I made the cozy itself 10 inches around. To get the height, just eyeball it and make sure it's at least the height of the handle, not anything shorter. For example, mine is a little bit over 3 inches high, which matches my 3-inch handle. The chain count that you use to begin will vary depending on the hook and yarn you use, but for mine, it took 12 chains to reach my 3-inch height. For this project, I am using a weight 4 cotton yarn with a 4mm hook. To begin, I'm going to start with a chain of 12 plus 1 for the turning chain, giving me a total of 13. Just as a quick reminder, the sizing might vary depending on your hook and yarn and possibly the mug that you're using. If you're using a thicker yarn, then you'll probably need less chains. But for mine, I'm doing a chain of 13. For this pattern, we're just going to be working single crochets for the whole thing, but what I would recommend for this very first row of single crochets is to work into the back bump. Typically, I tell you to just work in the top of your chains here, but if you're planning on doing this as a gift or even selling these, I would recommend that you go into these back bumps because it's going to give you a really pretty edge. If you don't want to do that, work into the second chain from the hook, 1, 2, do not count the one that is on the hook, 1, 2, or flip it over and work your first single crochet into the very first bump that you see. If you find that these little bumps are tight, I would recommend that you go down a hook size or just find a tapestry needle and just poke it through to help loosen it up. So I just went through that bump, and then I'm completing my single crochet as normal. I'm just going to do this all the way across. When I'm finished, I want to see 12 single crochets. Last one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Chain 1 and turn. See how that chain is right there? You do not want to work into that chain. You want to work into that very first stitch next to it. And now we're going to be working into the back loop only of our single crochets to get that ribbing effect. When you have your work facing you like this, it's easy to accidentally work into these stitches. Bring it forward towards you so you can see the top of those V stitches. You're going to go right into the back stitch there to create your single crochet. There's one. We're going to do this all the way across. Just make sure your work is facing towards you so you can see the top of the stitches and work into the back stitch. And as you can see, it's already giving you that really pretty ribbing effect. Coming to the end, the very last stitch, chain 1 and turn. Again, remember that chain does not count. We're going to work into the very first true stitch next to it. You're just going to continue this again, going into that back stitch or back loop to create your stitch. Another place that it's very easy to miss a stitch is at the end of the row. Sometimes that can get kind of tight. So it's always important to keep a count as you're working. Okay, and there it is. It's kind of hiding underneath. Okay, chain 1 and turn. And now you're just going to continue doing this until you reach the width around your cup. Here again, I just wanted to show you how easy it is to lose a stitch. If I wasn't looking closely, I think I was done with the row, but there is one last stitch that I need to make sure that I create a stitch with. Just always double check your count. That way it's going to stay very beautiful and straight for you. Just for gauge, this took me 36 rows and got me to about 9 to 10 inches. The best thing is just to double check. You just want to go around your mug and just make sure that each side reaches to the handle. And this is perfect here. I'm stretching it just a little bit to reach to the handle. This is what you want, because when you put your handles on, you want it to stretch to hold it in place. So now we're just going to make the handles for both sides. And that's super easy to do. We're just going to use the same chain count that we used to begin. To get the width, I started with a chain of 12 plus 1 for that turning chain, but 12 is fine. You don't have to include that turning chain number, or you can. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to chain 12. Now I'm just going to take and attach it to the other side with a slip stitch. Just go into a really nice thick area there. Pull your yarn through and create your slip stitch. I'm just going to do another chain and then fasten off. But before I fasten off, I just want to test this. And I would recommend that you do the same. Don't do any weaving in or fastening off until you've double checked. A quick suggestion here, if you want to just add a button here, you can. You can put a button and then just slide it around the button. That would be really, really pretty. Or you can add another handle, and that's what I'm going to do here. Go ahead and just weave that in real quick. Just adding my slip knot to my hook. Just going to find a nice bulky area to fasten on. I want to do that because it's going to get used a lot and stretched out, so I want it to be in a place that won't get too loose. And now I'm just going to chain 12 again. 1, 2, 3, 12. Come down to the other side and just get into a nice, thick, dense area. Slip stitch to hold, and then add a chain to fasten off. But before I fasten off, I am going to double check, make sure I like the hold that it gives. Perfect. So now I'll commit to the snip, and I'll go ahead and weave in my ends. For the coaster, I used a standard increasing sequence for a circle using double crochets. The coaster measures approximately 5 inches in diameter and was worked with 4 rounds. If you're familiar with working this kind of pattern, I've gone ahead and added the sequence here, but if you'd like to see a step-by-step tutorial, I'll add a link to a video that I did recently about how to turn a circle into a square, and that's the exact same circle that I used for this coaster. I can't remember if I showed this in that video, but I would recommend that you do an invisible join here just to give a really nice finish. So right before you go to fasten off on that very last round, instead go ahead and snip your yarn. You can either do this with your crochet hook or with your tapestry needle, whatever you want to use, it doesn't matter. Now I like to go across to the very first true stitch that was made. I'm skipping that chain 2. I'm just going to go under both of the bars of that stitch, just those top 2 stitches there, just go under. And then come back and go in the back loop only of the other stitch there. So right under, there's 1, 2, just into the back. I'm going to do a little bit of a snug on that. And as you can see, it's going to give the appearance of that stitch, making it virtually an invisible join there. And then without tugging too tightly on that, you don't want to lose that stitch. Just go into the back and weave in that end. And like I just said, don't pull too tight because you don't want to lose that stitch. I'm just working my way down to a more dense area. That way I can get in there and really secure that down. Now you have a really pretty join. If you want this to be a little bit stiffer than it is, then I would recommend that you just put a little bit of spray starch on the back. Don't do it on both sides, just in case it gives it a little bit of a sheen. Sometimes that can happen depending on the brand. So I like to just do the back of it. I haven't done anything to this one. I really like it, even with it being a little bit soft. I like the way it looks and feels. So it's definitely not necessary, but it is a good option if you want it to have a little bit more hold. To finish these off, I grabbed some labels, just some generic ones that say handmade, but you can order ones that are more personalized with your brand name or a logo. These were very inexpensive. I got them on Amazon. I think it was $8 for 40 pieces, 4 different styles. If you like these, I have popped the link in the description box below the video. But one thing to keep in mind is the orientation of these letters or the wording. If you want it to be on the top of your cozy or your warmer, just keep in mind that these will not work that way. Every time you fold it, it's always going to be on the inside. So if you want the label to show, then it's going to have to be on the bottom of your cozy or on the side by the handles. That's why I went ahead and used the little square here. That way I could put it at the top where I wanted it. For the circles, it works just perfectly. You can put it wherever you want on here and the wording will show. So that's really good. But just keep that in mind if you decide to go with the same pack. If you don't have any thread handy, you can get by with the yarn that you used for your project. Just pull off a couple of plies and treat it like thread.